Well, good morning, church. How are you? You all good? So good to see you all this morning. And if you're wondering who the funny girl is with the funny accent, I don't have an accent. Y'all do. And see that, y'all? I'm getting so good at it. And I'm just thrilled that I get to share the word with my Highlands family this morning, whether you're here in person, on another campus, watching online. It's a great joy for me to be a part of this team, part of this leadership team, to have a bit of old English on the American team. And I'm thrilled and so excited about what we're doing as a church. Just watching that, you should be so proud, church, of all the ways in which you're helping people, the way that you're showing up in this time of crisis to say, hey, we are the church. We're going to be the church no matter what. So thank you to every single one of you that has been involved in serving somewhere. Hey, we're the church that are serving and showing up every day, right? Not just one day, every day. So thank you, church, for the difference that you're making. It's incredible to see the testimonies of just the smallest note that makes a difference in someone else's life. We saw on the screen a moment ago the announcement that the men are going to have a men's night. That was pathetic, but anyway, Pastor Dino's excited about it. But I just need to let you know that after you've done your men's night, we're going to show you how it's really done, and we're going to have a girls' night, okay? Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are. On September the 25th, we can't do conference as usual this year, but I've had the privilege of helping lead the team and be with the team that are talking about what's going to happen for our online girls' night experience, and it's just going to put the boys to shame. I'm just saying. I'm going to show you how it's really done, okay? But we're excited about both of those things coming up, so make sure that you go on the website, find out all the information. All right, are you ready for the Word of God this morning? That's 3 of you. Are you ready for the Word of God this morning? I know it's hard behind that mask. I know you have to fight that muffled sound, but you can do it. You can do it. So I'm going to open the Word and talk to us about something that I really hope helps you this morning. And more than that, I hope it becomes a message that then you use to help someone else. We heard, didn't we, from Pastor Chris last weekend that we're here right now to get this good news out. There's never been a time when the gospel is more needed to be heard for those that have lost all sense of hope. And I hope that this becomes something else, language for you to help yourself and then help others in this season we find ourselves in. Have you found at all at any time in this kind of pandemic season that we're in saying these words, it's just unfair? Has anyone said that, or is it just me? Like it's just unfair that we can't do church as usual. It's unfair that I can't go to the store in the way that I want to go to the store. It's unfair that my job doesn't look like it used to look, or I can't see my friends like I normally see them. It's unfair that I have to sit in service with this mask on my face. It's unfair that I can't hug all the people I want to hug. I don't know whether you've said that, but I have said that several times. And the truth is, this season that we are in, it has treated us all differently. And for many of us, we have experienced some unfair circumstances. We didn't ask for them. We didn't create them. We kind of just have had to put up with them. And you know, a lot of us in this room and watching at home right now, it's affected us in different ways. For some, there's been a loss of employment. For others, if you're in the hand sanitizer business, you're doing really well right now. Others, you're not. Your business is struggling because of the circumstances beyond your control. It's unfair. If you're a parent in here, you'll have children that have probably used the same words to you. It's unfair. Something in the way that their siblings treated. They might say, it's unfair. And as a parent, what do you say in response? Life's unfair, right? You've all said it, yeah? You have. And that's the truth. Life is unfair. And you might think, well, this is not a very uplifting message, Charlotte, this morning. But we need to know that about life. We need to face that about life. There are seasons that are just unfair. That's the best way to describe them. And just like we try and teach our children, I think sometimes we forget as adults that these are the things that we have to learn to navigate as believers. And so today, I want to speak into the place of unfair, whatever that looks looks like in your life right now. And I want to give you hope today in your place of unfair, because there's something else that is also unfair. And that is the grace and the favor and the goodness of God. It is really unfair. He lavishes it upon us when we don't deserve it. He sends it following after us on a daily basis. His mercy and his goodness and his kindness is extended towards us when we're not actually deserving of it. It's unfair that he would do so much for us when we feel in return we can do so little for him. So the good news is, if you feel like you're in an unfair scenario right now, that there is hope for you today. That there is a story that God is writing by his grace and favor today that maybe you just need reminding of. When I read the Bible, there are so many people that had to deal with unfair circumstances. It wasn't fair that Moses was born as a boy at a time when there was an edict in the land to murder all the baby boys. That was unfair timing for his birth. It wasn't fair that there was a guy whose mother, when she looked at him, could only think about the pain that she endured to bring him into the world, and so literally called him Jabez, which means pain. Imagine if you were in a household with your siblings. Okay, time for dinner, Stephen. Come downstairs, Heidi. Pain, get down here right now. You'd be like, this is so unfair, right? But I love Jabez because you know what? He took his unfair circumstance to God. And he said, God, I wonder if you could write me a different story. I wonder if where I was named pain, you could enlarge my territory. I wonder if you could do something to change this script. And God said, I like you. I like you've not just lived with the title somebody gave you, but you've come to the one who can rename you. Today, that's who we are coming to. The one who rewrites, renames the story of our lives. So I want to take us to a place in the Bible where there's a story that plays out of a very unfair circumstance that someone has to deal with. And I want us to learn from what they did so that we can do the same thing in our life. This message is about a place called Debar. Everyone say Debar. Debar. Debar was an actual place where people actually ended up living. It was not a great place. It wasn't a place that you would go onto Zillow and say, I think I would like to live there. I'm pretty sure the property was fairly cheap in Debar. It wasn't on the top tourist spots in the area. Debar literally means this. It was a place of no pasture, no words, and no thing. Not attractive, right? Where do you live? Where there's no pasture, no words, and no thing. But that was an actual place that existed. And I think in this season, maybe we can feel, or maybe there's something that's happened in your life that's caused you to feel, wow, I am living in Debar. I feel I have no pasture. I don't feel secure anymore. I feel all the things that made me feel comfortable have been removed. I feel like I don't have a voice anymore. I don't have a place where I can express myself anymore. I feel like everything that was connected to me somehow has been disconnected. That is called Debar. And if that is where you are, or where you know someone that you love is currently living, it's time to help them step out of Debar into the grace and the favor of God. The person that lived in Debar was a young man. He went there from a very early age. And his life was very unfair. That's how he ended up there. His name was Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth's story is told in Samuel, the book of Samuel. And in 2 Samuel, we're given a context for what actually happened to Mephibosheth. Let me read to you how his life literally in a moment turned from good to very hard. It says in verse 4, Jonathan, the son of Saul, had a son who was lame in both feet. This is what happened. He was 5 years old when the news about Saul, who was his granddad, and Jonathan, his father, came from Jezreel. Now, the news that came to him at this young age was that both his father and his grandfather had died on a battlefield. That's pretty unfair. That overnight, this young boy lost the 2 people in his life that he looked to, his father and his grandfather. And now because he's in the royal household, there's a urgency to get him to a place where he's not endangered for his life, because there will be a fight over who took over the dynasty of the household. And so the person that he should have been able to trust, the nurse looking after him, it says she picks him up and she was beginning to fleeing out the house. And as she hurried to leave, she dropped him. He fell and he became disabled. His name was Mephibosheth. In one moment, his life went from one reality to a whole nother reality. He went from a prince to a fugitive. He went from able-bodied to disabled. He went from a palace lifestyle to the location that he was taken to of Debar. Maybe you feel right now, you were in one place and now you're in another. You were employed and now you're not. You felt like you knew what was happening with your future. Now you have no clue what the future is going to look like. That was his life. And so let's draw some lessons from this man's journey. What did he learn? How did he end up leaving Debar? Because the news I have for you today, church, you are going to leave Debar. I'm telling you, you are going to leave Debar. Some of you don't think it's possible to get a different story out of this season, but God is writing the story already that's going to blow your mind. And so I want us to learn from Mephibosheth's story. The first thing I want us to learn is this. Number one, your status life gives you does not alter the significance within you. Come on now. Listen to that again. The status that life gives you does not alter the significance within you. Mephibosheth lost his title, but he did not lose his value. He did not lose his value. He lost his title, but he didn't lose his value. Listen, in this pandemic, a lot of people's roles have changed. A lot of people's status has changed. But your status does not determine your significance. You are a child of God. You are chosen. You are valued. You are loved. And you are called. I think in this season of shaking, there's been a whole lot of shaking going on. Some of the things that we clung to for our identity, some of the things that we have built our life upon have revealed themselves to be that unstable structure. You know, we were in church and we said, well, I'm building my life on Jesus. And then you lose the job. And you're like, whoa, I thought I built my life on Jesus. Maybe I built a lot of my life on the status of my employment. Maybe I built my life on that relationship rather than on my sonship or my daughtership in Jesus. And in that shaking period, we can begin to realize that we've allowed some things to define us that God never intended to define us. Your label that life gives you is not the same as what God calls you. You are not single, disabled, single parent, divorcee, ex-addict, unemployed. You are not any of those things. When God calls you, he calls you by name, not by label. And so we have to realize that. If we were to look at the status of someone like Gideon, he was the weakest of the weakest of the weakest of the weak. That's a lot of weak. Maybe that's what you feel right now. I just feel weak. I feel like I have no energy. Isn't it funny how you can get into this lifestyle in this season of thinking that pajamas are everyday, all day wear? Hello? Anyone else? It's like, oh, clothes. I don't even remember what we do with those. And if you're watching at home in your PJs, no conviction, but please get changed at some point today. It's amazing how we can begin to change the way we look, the way we dress, the way we speak because of what's happening around us instead of looking to what's happening on the inside of us. And so Gideon's the weakest of the weak, but God says over Gideon's life, hey, mighty warrior, hey, I'm rewriting your story. That is not who I say you are. What about Mary? She was an unwed teenager. But when God spoke over her life, she was the carrier of a savior. And so we got to realize that God's labeling of our life does not look like man's. The grace of God will rewrite your story every single time. In 2 Samuel 9, that begins to happen for Mephibosheth. Because in 2 Samuel 9, we find that God begins to put Mephibosheth on somebody's mind. I love this part. You know what, church? You need to know God can put you on someone's mind. God can put you in someone's thinking. God can put you in someone's thought process that you don't even know right now is sat at home or is watching online, and your name is coming to mind, and they're going to help write the favor of God into your story. Some of you, as I'm speaking right now, someone's going to come to mind who is currently living in Debar, and guess why they're coming to your mind? Because God's going to use you, like you heard last week, to take the good news to that person and say, it's time to leave Debar. Come with me. And I love this. It says that just all of a sudden, in 2 Samuel 9, David says, hey, is there anyone still left of the house of Saul to whom I can show kindness for Jonathan's sake? Favor will find you. God's grace knows exactly where you are. And you might be trying to plan all these ways to get your life back on the track you want it on. And God's like, what if I have a better track? What if I have a higher way? What if I have a plan that exceeds your plan? What if right now I'm placing you on someone's mind and they're asking a question that's going to lead to another part of your story being written? And so David says, is there anyone? And so somebody replies, hey, there is the son of Jonathan still. He's lame in both feet. And David says, where is he? And the servant says, he's in Debar. He's living in a place of no pasture, no word, no thing. And David says, send someone and bring him to me. I love it. When God gets involved, he sends for you. And he calls for you. Now here's what you need to know. When he calls for you, you got to respond. See, Mephibosheth was going to have to respond to the invitation to leave Debar. And you're going to have to respond to the invitation God has for your life to leave that place that you've become really comfortable in. Maybe you're like, I don't want to put clothes on again. I kind of feel these PJs have molded to my body form. They fit me perfectly. I don't know that I ever want to wear shoes again. I like my slippers. Leave me alone. But you can't run in your slippers. And you are called to run into the things of God. So it's time to change your shoes. Do you know how many people are living in Debar? How many people in your community and in the world around you are living in that place where they don't know where their pasture is, where they don't know where there's any hope? In steps the church. Just like in that story, David steps in and says, I'm sending you an invitation. Would you like to leave Debar? I know there's another way to live. I know there's a hope for your hopelessness. God's calling us to bring those people to mind, to invite them to leave Debar. But you've got to leave first. The second thing you need to know is Debar may be your location, but it is not your final destination. So don't order any Amazon furniture to be delivered to Debar. Stop it. Stop hanging up your family photographs. Stop moving in the cat. Stop it. You are not staying in Debar. It's not the end destination. This season will pass, right? It will pass. I know it's hard right now when you sat with your masks on nodding at me. But it will pass. Because God is good. And his word is final. And so don't move into Debar. Stop inviting everybody to stay at Debar with you. No. Psalm 23 says this. He makes us lie down in green pastures. And what? He makes us walk through. He leads us through the valleys. The valley of the shadow of death. He leads us through those valleys. I think sometimes the church has got it flipped around. And we're lying down in the valley. And we're rushing past the pasture. God's like, whoa, I never said lie down in your valley. I said, keep moving through your valley. Get out of bed in your valley. Get up in your valley. Mephibosheth, I'm sure, had got really settled into the lifestyle of Debar. Everybody else that was there had a story of unfair just like his. Everybody understood what Debar looked like, sounded like. I'm pretty sure the conversation was fairly depressing in Debar. I don't think there were many happy, clappy meetings in Debar. And it's amazing how you can actually end up in the environment, change your behavior. Some of you used to be so hopeful, and now you're so moody. Some of you used to be the first to sign up for small groups. I'm in, I'm leading. Now you're like, I don't even want to go. What happened? What happens is Debar starts to change you. Start to change who you are. And that's why you have to remind yourself, this is not my living accommodation. I am passing through this season, and I'm getting through it as fast as I can. I'm getting through it with my attitude and with my confession. That's what God has called us to. We have to leave Debar. Where has Debar become your final destination instead of a passing through location? There needs to be hope today so that you can have a different conversation. When that envoy came from King David, he sent an envoy to Debar. And they came up to Mephibosheth and they said, the king would like you to come to the royal household. I imagine him looking at himself and thinking, I can't go. I don't have the right clothes. I don't even know where to fit. I don't even know how to behave anymore. And in that moment, he had a decision to make. Do I stay where I've now begun to identify and feel comfortable, or do I get up? And we all have to make that decision. You have to make a decision. Okay, I'm getting up and I'm going to the house of the Lord. Okay, I'm getting up and I'm reading my Bible. Okay, I'm going to go to the 3rd week of prayer and fasting, and I'm going to get involved and I'm going to pray for a miracle. I don't feel like it. I don't know what comes next, but you got to start telling yourself, this is not how I'm behaving. Debar cannot change me, but Debar can teach me. It can teach you. It can teach you how to be resilient. It can teach you how to stand on the word of God. It can teach you how to praise in the storm. It can teach you what real worship looks like. It can teach you. And the lessons you learn in Debar will build a future for you that is far greater than you can ask, think, or imagine. Oh, when you come out of Debar, making it pay, the enemy hates it. So don't allow him to think you've become a permanent resident in a temporary place. It's not your final destination. I want to speak over someone that's listening right now. It is not your final destination. The end of that job is not your final destination. The fear you're feeling, it is not your final destination. Today you got to hear it loud and clear and get up and get ready for the envoy of God's invitation for you to move out of Debar. Yep, you might have to leave some company you made in Debar. Yep, you might have to change some conversation. Yep, you might have to sign up for a small group to get you out of Debar. I don't care what you have to do, but there comes a point where it's on you to respond. Remember when Jesus walked by the disciples' boat? He's like, follow me. He didn't say, guys, I have this idea. I'm recruiting. Here's who else is in. This is their profile. This is their personality type. This is their Enneagram. If you feel like they are your fit, then you should join us because this will be the perfect combination of people for you. And I just think it'd be really, what would you like to discuss it a little more? Would you like to see their picture? Would you like to see their work and their career? No. He didn't tell them any of that. He said, if you want to leave the boat, you just got to follow me. You want to leave Debar? You got to say yes when the envoy comes. You want to move on to the next thing? You got to get up and get dressed. It's not your final destination. I love this last part because the final thing I want to draw out and show you in this story is this. Number 3, your infirmity isn't your identity, but it can be your authority. When you read this story, everybody refers to Mephibosheth not by his name, but by his disabled, crippled condition. When David says, is there anyone I can show kindness to? The servant says, oh, there is the lame guy. And throughout this story, people say, oh, the cripple, oh, the one that was dropped. Nobody says his name. In fact, this infirmity had so affected the way that Mephibosheth even saw himself, that when he finally meets King David, when he finally meets David, it says in verse 7, when David shows up and they meet, he says, don't be afraid, David said to him, for I will surely show you kindness for the sake of your father, Jonathan. And I'm going to restore to you all the land that belonged to your grandfather. And you're always going to eat at my table. See, God doesn't just write the story differently. I mean, he completely blows Debar away. He goes, you've been eating Debar? Guess where you're going to be eating? At the king's table. Oh, you feel you've lost things? Oh, I'm about to restore everything plus more. God doesn't just write a little bit better than Debar. God has a whole nother level for your life after this season called unfair. And so as he stands there and the king's telling him of all he wants to do for him, this is how Mephibosheth responds. He bowed down and he said, what is your servant that you should take notice of a dead dog like me? He's lost such a sense of value, a sense of worth, even about himself, that he refers to himself in a way where his infirmity has caused him to see himself differently. Listen, I don't know in life what has hurt you or harmed you. I don't know who walked away from you or said something. I don't know what the unfair looks like for you. But if you allow it, it will begin to become your identity. You'll be known as the one that is bitter. You'll be known as the one that feels betrayed. You'll be known as the one that's mad at the world if you allow it to identify you. But instead of allowing your infirmity to become your identity, why not use it to become a platform for authority? Why not say, you know what the enemy meant for evil, God's going to use for good. You know what I lost, I'm going to see a gain in the way that, if you're an ex-addict, yes, use your platform to say, hey, I broke free, now you can break free. We need you to stand on that place that the enemy meant to maim you and lame you and say, I have an authority because I left Debar and I came to the king's table. You have an invite to the king's table, so put down the happy meal the enemy's trying to give you as a substitute. There ain't nothing happy in that meal. Why are you living off a kind of lesser meal that life keeps serving you when you're called to the king's table? Let me tell you what happens when you go to the king's table. Everybody has to call you by name. Nobody gets to call you the lame and the crippled one at the king's table, because they have to show respect to whoever sat at that table. So as soon as he got to the king's table, everybody was like, Mephibosheth, where would you like to sit? Mephibosheth, can I bring you a drink? Mephibosheth, would you like some food? Mephibosheth, is this okay for you? Is the temperature right for you? They were calling him by name all the time once he entered the king's table. Not in Debar, but in this household, everyone called him by name. And here's what I want you to know. Do you know what the name Mephibosheth means? It means the destroyer of shame. God used the very thing that had made him feel so embarrassed, the very thing that had made him feel so crippled in life and so bent over in pain, the very thing that had tried to identify him and relocate him. God said, no, I will call you by your name. And every time I call you by your name, we will destroy the shame that the enemy tried to put on you. Every time I call you by your name, you will walk away with an authority that comes from that place that the enemy thought would be your forever infirmity. God calls you by your name. You are not called the names that Debar tries to give you. You may be in a season right now that you feel is unfair, but I have to remind you that God's favor is so unfair. God's favor and goodness and kindness rewrites every single part of your story. So wherever this finds you today, I want you to know that you are not meant to live in Debar. And there are people right now around you who are camped out in Debar, and you need to call them this afternoon. And you need to say, you are on my mind. Hey, I'd love to take you with me to a small group. Hey, I'd love to get involved and pray with you over this situation. Why? Because they need to know that there's an invitation to leave Debar and come to the King's table. You deserve a seat at the King's table because you are a child of the Most High God. I don't know where this finds you today across all of our campuses, but in this moment, I want to pray over you. And in this moment, maybe you would say, you know what, Charlotte, I just feel so far from God. I've so begun to identify with Debar, I forgot who I am. Maybe today you need to give your heart to Jesus. You are lost, but today you realize that it's time to be found. It's time to come home. Wherever this finds you today, I want to pray. And in a moment when I pray, I want to lead those that need it in a prayer to say yes to Jesus. So in every campus, would you close your eyes and just bow your head? Father, I thank you for every single person in the house today. God, I thank you for our church and our family here, God. God, you know exactly the circumstance that they are navigating. You know the unfair that they are facing. But God, today, remind them that you are calling them to the King's table. God, I thank you that everything that the enemy meant for evil, you will use for good, God. So today, I pray we would shake off any areas that we know don't belong to us, and we would grab a hold of our inheritance that is found in only you. And if you're in the room right now, as eyes are closed, you say, I need God today. I need God today. Then I simply want you to pray this prayer that I'm about to say just quietly in your heart. Dear God, today, I choose to give you my life. Today, I ask for your forgiveness. And today, I choose to leave Debar. God, thank you that you sent your son to die for me, and that you have given me a seat at the King's table. Today, I say yes.